he's reoffended for a violent crime. This guy, to me, is somebody that terrifies me to be on the streets, because before the age of 20, he'd committed something like 19 crimes. That was before he killed my son.
It has only been a few months since Starmer took over the reins of government, but it has already become a real nightmare for him and his government. Under pressure from the public and the opposition, he is trying his best to keep the situation under control after a series of disastrous decisions. The Labour Party manifesto shows shocking disrespect for the elderly. This has never happened before. This discovery was a real blow, and there is no reasonable explanation why it was decided to do so this year. We are in 6th place among the richest economies in the world, but they prefer to rob pensioners. Why shouldn't they be outraged? The suffering that Starmer causes to the elderly is deeply disturbing to all of us. Why shouldn't they express their dissatisfaction? His callous actions towards the elderly during his short term in office are causing widespread outrage. Imagine you are retired, barely making ends meet, and the new Prime Minister audaciously deprives you of even modest financial assistance of £300 just to plug some financial hole that he dreams of. And on top of that, he generously gives away millions to those who are already basking in luxury. It really makes you wonder whose side he's really on.
The government has confirmed this afternoon, just a few minutes ago, that it has offered the junior doctors an average uplift of 22.3%. So that means that the junior doctors who are on strike for the past 20 months, they were holding out for a pay restoration of somewhere in the region of about 35%. They've been talking to the government, the new government, for the last couple of weeks. Remember, Wes Streeting, the incoming health secretary, said he had made it a top priority to get around that table, to talk to the BMA, the union representing the junior doctors, and find a way of resolving this dispute.
Each junior doctor's salary will be increased by 22%, which is almost £600 million. Isn't this a blatant example of favoritism and hypocrisy towards the elderly, who so need support with the onset of winter? Despite criticism for his apparent bias, Starmer continues to stir up a scandal. What will be his next genius step? Let criminals roam the streets freely. Let's talk about the disastrous consequences this can lead to. One of the most basic duties of the state is to keep people in custody until they are convicted. However, we are now facing a situation where thousands of prisoners will be released in the coming weeks and months. Imagine the horror and shock of a mother who finds out that her son's killer has been released before the end of his sentence.
One of the people released from one of the northern prisons yesterday had, wait for it, 109 previous convictions. So that person, I would say, is bound to reoffend. Well, I'm joined down the line by Gaynor Bell, and your son Stephen Bell was murdered at the age of 22, and you're a knife crime campaigner, Gaynor. And, you know, the guy that did this was actually released early, wasn't he?
Yes. But not only that, I foresaw that he'd reoffend again, which he has done. He's reoffended for a violent crime. This guy, to me, is somebody that terrifies me to be on the streets, because before the age of 20, he'd committed something like 19 crimes. That was before he killed my son.
I am deeply convinced that we need to put more particularly dangerous criminals behind bars in order to clear our streets of this threat. Keir Starmer's actions actually pose a serious danger to society. We see thugs and criminals being released, and I can't help but predict that these decisions could lead to tragedies and suffering for innocent people. If that happens, all the responsibility will fall on Keir Starmer, and it will be unbearable. Had he forgotten how fiercely he had attacked Sunak when he had only offered to release the prisoners without even taking any real action? This hypocrisy is simply off the scale. Where is his moral responsibility?
Perhaps the most ludicrous part of the Prime Minister's speech on Monday was when he said he won't accept the idea that any of the problems people are facing are caused by the 14 years of Conservative government. He won't say how many prisoners they've released early. He won't say if they're burglars, abusers or stalkers. He won't say where they are or what support their victims are getting. Yet he thinks he has the right to tell people they can't blame his government for any of it. Doesn't he think that rather than confiscating lanyards like some jumped-up milk monitor, he should stop issuing get-out-of-jail cards free to prisoners considered a risk to children?
Starmer really hit the jackpot, didn't he? He became the epitome of hypocrisy, breaking his promises even before he took his place at the table. It's not just his questionable decisions, it's his personal life, full of privileges and benefits, while the whole country is suffering from the financial crisis. What a shame it is. Keir Starmer came to Downing Street with loud promises of change, but now he is contemptuously called the king of freebies. He enjoys free clothes, free tickets and free food while millions of people struggle to survive. Since 2019, he has received gifts for the staggering sum of £107,145. This is the largest amount among all members of Parliament. Almost £40,000 came from one donor, Lord Wahid Ali, £6,200 for work clothes, and £3,455 for several pairs of glasses.
Some of that money was for the loan of a flat during the election period. No money changed hands.
Yes, and that was related to your son.
Yeah, there was no cash adjustment. We had a situation where the election was called, not when we expected it, I think most people. My son happened to be in the middle of his GCSEs. That means there are a lot of journalists outside the front door and in the street. I'm not complaining about that, but if you're 13, as my girl is, if you're 16, as my boy is, that's quite hard to navigate when you're concentrating on GCSEs. Now, hear me out, because you put it to me.
Yeah.
So I said, we're going to get you out of here and get you somewhere where you can just study and get to school and back without having to go through all of that. And that's when someone said, well, in which case I can make this flat available to you. It's safe, secure, he can get on with the job. No money exchanged hands, we didn't. No money exchanged hands, but for the registrar, no, but you put it to me, let me just finish. But for the registrar's purposes, he says, well, I know you didn't pay and nobody gave you money, but let's work out what it would have been worth if it had been a commercial transaction, which it wasn't. So I'm not saying, you know, of course I understand why you ask questions, etc. But I do think sometimes it's important just to sort of look behind the number and say, what was the human story behind some of this? And I wasn't going to let my son fail or not do well in his GCSEs because of journalists outside our front door.
He received more than £12,000 from the FA Premier League Limited, £4,000 of which was spent on VIP tickets to the Taylor Swift concert. Yes, you heard right, Starmer spent more than £107,000 on freebies and gifts. This man got everything for free, from glasses and suits to a luxurious penthouse in the convention garden. As for his wardrobe, how big is this closet? Where the hell do all these costumes come from? I'm just imagining this fairy tale, it's just absurd. And by the way, it turned out that they used Lord Ellie's £4 million townhouse in Soho, just a stone's throw from his $18 million Covent Garden penthouse, to develop an election strategy. Now wait until you hear what Starmer said in his defense after his ridiculously expensive setback. It will be simply indescribable. What madness. Doesn't Starmer realize how selfish and greedy he looks when he makes such excuses? It's just shocking. And even worse, he uses his son as a shield to cover his own failures. It was such actions that brought down his popularity to a historic low, and according to YouGov, he became the most unpopular Prime Minister in the history of Great Britain. His power is rapidly disintegrating, and if he continues to swing his dirty axe, his position will be under serious threat. He suffered severe karma for harassing the elderly and the poor with his ruthless decisions. If he does not sincerely repent of his mistakes and does not start working in the interests of the people, he will face a bitter and humiliating end. Time is running out, and the consequences of his actions are just around the corner. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.